The reason I wanted to go to COP26 was to share Inuit youth perspectives from Canada on an international stage, because Inuit are very heavily impacted by climate change, by the changing ice formation patterns, the thawing of the permafrost, more sporadic weather events, that it's very, very important to me as president of the National Inuit Youth Council that the voice of Inuit youth for Canada is heard. One of the big things that I want world leaders to learn at COP26 was the very straightforward impacts of climate change on global warming as it relates to Inuit culture, to the Inuit way of life, whether that's just to live on the land or to harvest from the land. In regions where there's a lot of permafrost and that's thawing, we're actually seeing coastline erosion. We're seeing the loss of land, like actual land is just literally eroding, fading away forever into the ocean. Similarly, we also have cultural practices that are eroding as the terrain erodes, as ice begins to become unstable, unpredictable. You can't rely on the traditional knowledge that would have been passed down for generations as to when ice is typically safe to traverse upon. There's a kind of well-known phenomenon in politics where sometimes science and the political realm are disconnected. And that is something that I did see, at least on a smaller scale, say at COP26, where, for example, when I was speaking, when my colleagues, my Inuit colleagues were speaking, none of us were speaking to world leaders, people who can make substantial decisions. Whereas if we were saying those same words, sharing our same stories to world leaders, then there's a much greater likelihood that we will see more substantial action to combat climate change.
We'll cap oil and gas sector emissions today and ensure they decrease tomorrow at a pace and scale needed to reach net zero by 2050.
Anything that will progress the interests of climate action, of mitigating the effects of climate change is progress. That's incontrovertible. You know, that's like progress is progress. However, again, my overarching concern is this progress enough to stave off the forever impacts of climate change? You know, like once the ice melts, it's not going to regenerate. You know, it's not going to start suddenly freezing again.
I think it was really important for Newfoundland and Labrador to be at Scotland, to be at COP26. As an oil-producing province, of course, the oil and gas product that we have right here, right now, is valuable at this time of transition, and we need to make sure that we exercise it before it becomes unvaluable.
The question of oil from Newfoundland and Labrador is a very difficult one, given how integral it has been historically to the wealth of the province. It does seem a little tone deaf. Honestly, given the intent of COP26 to lower emissions, with the proviso that there is obviously still that need for fossil fuels in the immediate present and near future, it's going to take very substantial action from the highest levels of government across the globe to actually regulate the emissions in a much more dramatic, a much more urgent way. And I'm very fearful that by the time the whole globe recognizes the urgency required for climate action, because we Inuit are living this every day. And so by the time it becomes urgent to other parts of the world, it may be too late.